In a shocking move, U.S. President Donald Trump fires FBI Chief James Comey. Why now, and what's next? How refugees in the United States are turning skills from home into new businesses. And one Caribbean island, two countries, and a battle for natural resources. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Now, in a move that stunned the Washington political world, U.S. President Donald Trump has fired James Comey from his post as director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The president told Comey in a blunt letter Tuesday that Comey is not able to effectively lead the bureau. Trump says he based his decision on separate letters written by Attorney General Jeff Sessions and his deputy Rod Rosenstein that called for Comey to be sacked over his handling of the investigation into the emails of former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, whom Trump defeated in last November's election. But Democratic lawmakers led by Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer are angrily alleging that Comey was dismissed in an effort to derail the FBI's investigation of alleged ties between Russia and members of Trump's presidential campaign.
We know the House is investigating Russian interference in our elections that benefited the Trump campaign. We know the Senate is investigating. We know the FBI has been looking into whether the Trump campaign colluded with the Russians, a very serious offense. Were these investigations getting too close to home for the president?
Now, some Republican lawmakers also expressed their anger and dismay over the president's firing of Comey. Comey was speaking to a group of FBI employees in California when he learned of his firing through television news reports. Hours later, he was taken by motorcade to a nearby airport to return to Washington. Some congressional Democrats called Trump's action Nixonian, a reference to President Richard Nixon's firing of officials investigating him during the Watergate scandal in the early 1970s. Well, CNN later reported that grand jury subpoenas were recently issued relating to the FBI's Russia probe seeking business records from associates of Michael Flynn, who Trump earlier had fired as national security advisor. Joining me now to help all of us get a better understanding of this seismic decision by President Trump is VOA national correspondent Jim Malone. Jim, you know, I always count on you to kind of get a sense of things in Washington. Did you see this one coming?
No, I don't think a lot of people did, Vincent. Hit like a shockwave. Yeah. And I think not only were Democrats shocked and in some cases dismayed, even though they didn't have a great love for Comey based on his role with Hillary Clinton, but a lot of Republicans are expressing concern about the timing of this and what it means for the future of the ongoing investigations into any possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia.
Now, of course, the White House insists this has nothing to do with the investigation into Russia's interference. Why is nobody believing this?
Well, at the moment, I think they're looking at the reasons being given in the letter from the Justice Department to leading officials, talking about Comey's conduct with the Hillary Clinton investigation, but that was almost most of a year ago. Yeah. And so it's curious now, if he had wanted to relieve Comey, why not do it early in his administration? So Democrats are raising concerns that this is all about trying to sideline or quash the ongoing Russia investigation. The FBI is looking into it. There's no sign that's going to stop because that continues with career investigators no matter what happens to Mr. Comey. And of course, Congress is looking into it in both the House and the Senate.
Now, how can integrity be maintained as far as the investigations continue? And what can the White House do, possibly, to kind of change the narrative here?
Democrats are asking for a special counsel. That's someone outside of the Justice Department leadership to lead the investigation. This has happened before in American history. It also happened during the Watergate scandal of the 1970s involving President Nixon, as you referenced earlier. Unfortunately, at that time, the chief investigator was actually fired at the orders of President Nixon, which created a lot of political problems for him. Now, the political appearances here are not great for the White House right now, so they are under the gun, so to speak, to explain how this is not related to any action on the Russia investigation.
And you said things like this have happened before, but someone actually, immediately this happened, wrote to me and said, Doesn't the FBI director have any security of tenure?
Well, it is legal for the president to fire the FBI director for cause, so that is within his constitutional powers. But we should point out that traditionally, historically, the FBI director is seen as someone who is above political reproach, or at least should be. That's why they're nominated and serve generally 10-year terms, unless in this case, as we saw with Comey, he's been fired by Mr. Trump. Now it's up to the president to nominate a replacement, but that person has to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate.
Now, this plane, this White House plane took off, just over 100 days ago. It looks like it was hit with turbulence right from the get-go. Have you seen anything like this before, and does this interfere with any desire to govern properly? What
makes you wonder is what advice is the president getting, and perhaps even more importantly, who is he choosing to listen to, or is he operating a lot on his own instincts? He certainly did that a lot as a campaigner, and we've seen this very disruptive figure as a politician come into office on the promise of change. But what we're all watching for now is how is he adapting to governing? And is this just a clumsy, ill-timed move that, for the sake of appearances, does not look good for the White House? Or is there something more afoot about trying to sideline an investigation that is looking at members of his own administration? Democrats want to know answers, and it's not going to be something easy for the administration to kind of sideline.
Jim, thank you very much. For sure, this conversation is just beginning, right?
I think so.
Well, that's... the conversation, of course, will continue. That's VOA's national correspondent, Jim Malone, talking to us here in the studio. Now to East Africa, where a top government official has also been sacked. The president of South Sudan has replaced Army Chief Paul Malong with a general who is a member of an ethnic minority. President Salva Kiir has appointed General James Ejong as the new army chief. A spokesman for the Riek Machar's rebels says that Malong would remain a powerful force in the civil war because of his role recruiting Dinka tribal militias. Now, the World Bank recently approved a $50 million grant to provide direct food assistance to counter starvation and prevent hunger-related deaths during the ongoing famine in South Sudan. The money will help only some of the nearly 5 million people in that country who are classified as food insecure. And to the west, in Nigeria, people returning to their communities are facing the same problems after war has left homes and infrastructure destroyed. VOA's Kevin Enox reports.
At the border between Nigeria and Cameroon, people wait to head back to their homes. But all too often, there are no homes to go home to.
I spent 3 years in Cameroon from 2014 to 2017. Then we decided to come with all my family. We paid for our transportation to come, even this small child. I paid 4,000 naira for his transport if the money is converted to naira, but because we want to serve our country, I gathered all my family with our belongings to our dear country Nigeria. Now what we want from the government is to help us. We don't have wood to cook. We don't have anything in our hands, even soap to wash. As you see, this sign on my face is a sickness because I have no money to take care of it. So I left it like that. If possible, we want the government to open our roads and markets, not leave us like that in order to start up with our businesses.
There is precious little clean water. What there is must be brought in by relief agencies. The government's long-running war with Boko Haram has turned these people's hometown into rubble. Tents have replaced homes. Toilets are a hole in the ground surrounded by blankets.
We have about 444,000 internally displaced persons in the Ngala IDP camp. And in that whole number, all of them depend on the borehole that is behind us for potable water. So it is grossly inadequate. So it's very fundamental that issues that has to do with water be addressed as quickly as possible.
It is another example of food insecurity driven by conflict. To the east, South Sudan is already suffering under drought-related famine, and the situation is being made worse by similar conflicts.
In South Sudan, since their conflict erupted, 82 humanitarian workers have been killed, 15 this year alone. They are killing humanitarian workers, they are looting aid, They are not respecting the rules of war. We can't access those most in need because of the disrespect of international. So let the African governments put pressure on these groups to respect the humanitarian law.
But relief agencies say that even if the conflicts were to end tomorrow, they don't have the money to help the people in need all across East Africa. Kevin Enochs, VOA News, Washington.
Well, back to Washington. Talks between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov have wrapped up Wednesday at the White House. Earlier, Lavrov visited the State Department for a meeting with Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. U.S. discussions with the Russian Foreign Minister was expected to be dominated by the two countries' differences over Syria and Ukraine. VOA State Department correspondent Cindy Sain has more.
As Russia celebrates Victory Day, an annual event to commemorate the defeat of Nazi Germany 72 years ago, Foreign Minister Lavrov is headed to Washington for one-on-one talks with Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. The two men met in Moscow last month, and experts say, once again, Syria likely will be the main focus.
On Syria, we both claim to be seeking the same thing, which is an end to the civil war and a transition to some kind of new government acceptable to all the people of Syria. But of course, when you get down to the details, we can't seem to agree on any of them.
Ambassador Vershbow says the main sticking point remains whether Syria's future includes President Bashar al-Assad, who the U.S. and most other countries say must step down, but Russia supports. Also at issue, Russia, Iran, and Turkey signed a deal on de-escalation zones, or safe zones, for Syrian civilians at talks in Astana, Kazakhstan last week. Tillerson likely will want to learn more about how the zones will be enforced. Vershbow said frequent dialogue between Tillerson and Lavrov is crucial.
At least Tillerson and Lavrov have developed a working relationship. It was very important that Tillerson also saw President Putin when he was in Moscow a couple of weeks ago.
Some Democrats say they are very concerned by ongoing investigations into Russia's interference in last year's U.S. presidential election. They would like Tillerson to convey that to Lavrov.
It was an attack on our country. Russia tried to undermine our free election system. They tried to influence an election in America. That's a very serious issue. So we want to find out exactly what they were doing, and we want to take steps to protect our country and our democratic institutions. And we believe that additional sanctions should be imposed on Russia for this behavior.
After Wednesday's meeting, both men will meet again, along with their 6 other Arctic Circle counterparts in Fairbanks, Alaska, Thursday. Cindy Sain, VOA News, Fairbanks.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends also. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter, VOA Vince McCory. Coming up, how refugees in U.S. are regaining control of their futures. Stay with us.
This is BizBeat.
Consumer demand for abalone, also called abalone, has skyrocketed since the 1990s. But the popular hard-shell sea snail, once considered a delicacy so many love to eat, has triggered a growth in illegal fishing. But at the same time, demand has ignited a growth in aquaculture companies, where South Africa leads the way. Peter Britz has studied abalone for 30 years and says most of the sea creatures supplied by farms in South Africa is beating the competition.
And it fetches about double the price of the farmed abalone from Asia.
South Africans farm abalone on land. 10 million liters of seawater are pumped in every hour at this site, and where marketing manager Werner Pike has doubled production every 6 years.
It compares to the best abalone in the world, which is the Japanese abalone.
The global abalone industry has gone from $142 million in 1991 to over $2 billion today. For VOA's BizBeat, I'm Philip Alexio.
Welcome back. Now, refugees who flee war-torn places or persecution have at best a suitcase full of belongings when they arrive in the U.S. However, most rebuild their lives, overcoming language and cultural barriers, and some even become small business owners and help boost the local economy. Here's viewer Molly McKitterick.
Yasha Ismailov is passionate about what he is doing.
We can fix any car. So, you know, it happens a lot of times when nobody can fix it in town, they send it here. They know already we'll fix it if no one can fix it.
Ismailov opened his family business, Larry's Auto, 9 years ago.
When we came United States, we was working so hard first 3 years before we start the business. We was working 4 people and sometimes on double jobs. First, my job was painting. Second job, installing the AC. Third, my job was electric.
Ismailov was born to a Messetian Turkish family in Uzbekistan. Messetians are an ethnic subgroup of Turks.
My family had to run to Russia because it's massacre in Uzbekistan to Turk in 1989.
When the U.S. began accepting Messetian Turks as refugees in 2004, the family came to the U.S. and resettled in Charlottesville. Ismailov was 22.
When we came to Charlottesville back in 2005, we just bring clothes and that's all.
Which is why Ismailov worries about the increasing number of refugees around the world.
I can be one of them too. And I'm lucky I'm here, so they're not. You know, I feel sorry about them, so I like to help them with something if I can.
Charlottesville, a small city about 190 kilometers away from Washington, is known to welcome refugees. More than 3,000 refugees, including Ismailov, have restarted their lives here since the late 1990s, with the help of the International Rescue Committee.
There are jobs for them here, and then as they become more stable, they're opening their own small businesses. It just really adds a lot of diversity, but it's also adds economic impact. So you know, the refugees are not takers; they're giving back by helping the community grow economically.
Ismailov's shop now has 7 employees and repairs about 150 cars a month. He has opened another family business called Downtown Auto Sales, a used car dealership.
We're still working so hard. We're trying to do business better. And the second business, the dealer business, goes so well too. So now we almost sell like 2-3 cars every day.
Ismailov is a U.S. citizen now and owns his house.
My life in America is good. I have 2 kids. I have my wife. They are in the good school, and I have nice neighbors. I have a job, and nobody bothers me. I'm proud to be able to contribute to the community in Charlottesville.
And Ismailov has a patriotic hope.
My daughter, swimmer, and I hope one day she win Olympic medal for United States.
For producer June So, I'm Molly McKitterick, Charlottesville, Virginia.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, 2 countries battle for an island's natural resources.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headline. In South Sudan, President Salva Kiir has fired his longtime army chief, Paul Malong, after a slew of resignations by senior generals. The United Nations on Tuesday condemned the killing of 4 peacekeepers in the Central African Republic in an attack on their convoy by Christian militants in the southeast part of the country. In Ivory Coast, authorities seized 60 kilograms of elephant tusks as well as 7 leopard skins, with the suspects allegedly planning to sell them in Asia. In Nigeria, the giant African snail is sought after in parts of the world for its nutritional and cosmetic benefits. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Every song has a different meaning to each person that hears it and interprets it differently. Border Crossings is unique in that it lets the listeners decide what we're playing. But we bring in guests so that our audience has access to some of the biggest names in pop music today, and we reach out to the audience each and every day in different ways.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. For the world's super rich, the investment of choice is increasingly a very rare, naturally pink diamond, an asset class that this year has set records at auction. Experts say the trend for colored stones has gathered strength as the world emerged from financial crisis, with buyers showing a clear preference for the color pink. Naturally colored diamonds occur because of a particular lattice structure formed when they were created at great pressure in the Earth's crust that refracts light to produce colored rather than white stones. Depending on their exact structure, colored diamonds can be blue, yellow, red, and pink. But pink is both rare and aesthetically highly prized by collectors. Well, next up, a lake in Poland is being stocked with hundreds of thousands of predatory fish to help make the water drinkable. Nearly 800,000 pikes, zanders, and eels are being introduced to the lake to catch carp because they increase water turbidity by uprooting aquatic plants and stirring up sediment. This makes it murky and less suitable for drinking. As well as being a source of drinking water, the lake is also used for recreational activities and fishing. Restocking the lake this way provides more fish for fishermen and encourages natural spawning. Well, and finally, a visit to the dentist can be it's daunting for any child, but it is especially so for many with autism. Now, they can be upset by the lights in their faces or frightened by the noises of the instruments. Some have to be sedated after noticing that his autistic child's social interactions improved after spending time with the family's black Labrador. Raul Verrea quit his job and got certified as a therapy dog trainer for children with autism. His 6 therapy dogs get specialized training to resist the noises of the drills and to be able to cope with the children screaming and pulling their hair or their ears. So far, about 50 children have been assisted on their dental visits with therapy dogs. And that is what is trending today. Now, a new social impact documentary features 2 Caribbean countries at the opposite ends of the economic spectrum. Haiti, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and the Dominican Republic, which has become one of the region's strongest and most stable economies. Now, the film links environmental degradation to economic instability, which is also happening in Africa, as well as on a global level. VOA's Caroline Turner has more.
Death by 1,000 Cuts takes place on a Caribbean island shared by Haiti and the Dominican Republic. The 2 countries have a contentious history of competing for the island's limited resources. In the early 20th century, both countries relied heavily on wood charcoal for cooking fuel. By the 1960s, the Dominican Republic enforced an aggressive conservation plan to combat deforestation. But Haiti had no energy policy and lost 90% of its forests. Today, Haiti largely depends on charcoal illegally produced in the forests of the Dominican Republic. The film sets out to tell a story of conflict over natural resources, but while filming on location, there was a brutal murder. Filmmaker Jake Neal explains.
It is a murder mystery. It's a documentary film. And we wanted to tell the larger story of this conflict over natural resources between the Dominican Republic and Haiti through a very personal story. And it happened that as we began filming, there was a murder on the border within the national park in the Dominican Republic, the Sierra de Bauruco National Park, where a Dominican park ranger was murdered by a Haitian charcoal producer. And so it was this very stark example of what happens when you have this conflict over natural resources.
The film dramatizes many sides of the story. The murder of the forest ranger Melanio is told through his Haitian wife, Kalina, his family, and co-workers. Each has a different perspective on complex social, political, and economic issues, and the conflict due to the illegal charcoal trafficking trade.
We are on the border. This side is Haiti. This is the Dominican side.
We're in a zone overrun by charcoal ovens.
In this place, charcoal is referred to as black gold.
When I'm alone, I think of him.
My brother was killed. He gave me strength.
They operate like a cartel or a mafia.
If a Dominican kills a Haitian, the next day the Dominican is here like nothing happened.
I see what's being established in this country. Haitians serve as the perfect scapegoat.
In a fight, you either kill him or he would kill you. To live at the border, your heart has to be tough because there are borders that are burning. There needs to be alternative ways to help, or else it will be catastrophic.
Neil portrays a microcosm of the conflict over natural resources that occurs on the borders of many countries around the world.
They need to create charcoal to then sell it as a commodity that gets trafficked into the urban centers in Haiti. But there's certainly personalized conflicts that occur between Haitians and Dominicans.
With all the international aid coming into Haiti all these years, which has been billions of dollars, why hasn't this country been able to find a way out of this web? We know that all levels of people from top to bottom have vested interest in seeing this system continue.
The film shows how rampant inequality and environmental degradation continue to escalate tensions between the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Neil warns that conflicts over natural resources and the disparity of wealth will continue to fuel violent clashes around the world. Carolyn Turner, VOA News, Washington.
Well, that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, African News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks for watching from all of us in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A plate is a dish that you put your food on.
Have a lot on your plate.
Hey Anna, I'm having a party this weekend. You should come.
I wish I could, but my weekend is really busy. I'm baking a wedding cake, writing my article, teaching 2 classes, and oh, my parents are visiting.
Wow, you have a lot on